So on this stage, we have your alumni who will be debating the motion that I read out earlier. This house, Deborah, can I have the motion? So they'll be debating this motion. This house supports a global moratorium on robotics until unemployment and labor issues are resolved. I'll be introducing the first, I'll just introduce all the speakers now and a bit of their achievements and what a moratorium is. Okay, a moratorium is a temporary ban. All right. Oh, the rest I didn't. Okay, so the first speaker will be Amanda Chan, right? No, Sharvin. Sharvin is... Okay, all right. I'll just introduce the speakers then. Oh, sorry. So in opening government, we have Sharvin and Amanda. Opening opposition, we have Vinod and Patrick. Okay. In closing government, we have Deborah and Wei Jiet. And in closing opposition, we have Dr. Chandran and Kazu. All right. Without further ado, why? Dr. Zhu. Oh my God, I'm so old. I didn't know. And Dr. Zhu, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. All right. Without further ado, we're going to start this debate. I will be chairing, and Dira will be the designated timekeeper this year. Without further ado, on the motion, let us begin with the Prime Minister. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to start for you. The rise of automation coincides with rising unemployment because automation is replacing the assembly line. We have instances of technologies like artificial intelligence replacing even low-level technocratic jobs like entry-level lawyer jobs, entry-level accounting jobs, and entry-level administrative positions. We tell you that lots of these technologies are replacing or are increasingly taking these jobs away from people in society and causing significant detriment to society by contributing to rising retrenchment rates and a shrinking middle class. For example, when you have startups that are getting leaner and smaller, in which the smaller the size of the company, the more fetishized it is, the more effective and efficient it is, with an increase in nepotism as well, where you have MNCs that sort of pass on their roles and their posts to their immediate social circles and their immediate next generation individuals. Tell that this contributes to staggering unemployment amongst the youth especially, right? So the solution to these problems that I just stated is very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to implement a moratorium, i.e. we're going to put a temporary halt on the replacement of labor in factory processes, as well as the process that I just highlighted earlier in my speech. So what are we going to do with the bulk of investment that's already been put into developing automation technologies, right? We tell you that first and foremost, it's not a sunk cost, meaning investors will see returns, but these returns will occur to them in the long term. Meaning this moratorium is only a temporary halt. Let me remind you, this means that investors will still see their returns, except that they are also obliged to ensure that they also develop they also sustain or preserve employee welfare before they can see the returns out of profiteering or out of automation, right? So this means, so what do we mean by resolve, right? So what would the world look like, the point at which we want to remove this moratorium? We tell you that we don't necessarily think that unemployment rate has to be 0% because it's impossible, right? So the point at which it's reasonable for us to lift this moratorium is the point at which there's no there's no longer any lingering public discontent in regards to retrenchment rates. So meaning a basic idea of a natural, healthy unemployment rate we see is from like the likes of 2.5 to 3%, which is the unemployment rate of Malaysia, which is one of the lowest unemployment rates in the world, right? A lot of countries don't have the same privilege. We think that this is fair for us to set. I'm going to talk about three things. Firstly, I'm going to talk about accountable capitalism as a principal justification. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the incentive structures that we'll create. And thirdly, what is the skill leveling we will posit, we will introduce into the labor market. So firstly, in terms of principal justification, right? Let's talk about accountable capitalism, because capitalism is moving from its free market principles towards striking a balance between accountability to its employees and profit maximization. So this means, right, that free markets cannot exist in absolutes, meaning freedom to maximize profits can be curtailed if profit maximization comes at the expense of society. So for example, we have successfully limited working hours, we've successfully regulated working conditions, right? And more recently, the Accountable Capitalism Bill was passed by Elizabeth Warren in the US Congress, which seeks to democratize corporations by transferring decision-making power from the board of shareholders to employees, right? So this means that it's justified for us to curtail the freedom of companies to act to maximize the profit if it means that we can achieve societal greater good. And the link here is that unemployment causes significant social detriment. So we're talking about instances where individuals or families cannot pay mortgages, fresh grads cannot service their student loans, parents who cannot save for their children's education. Without that leads to vast amounts of intergenerational harms in which the social security provided by the government is not enough to cover. And given the fact that it's temporary, given the fact that social security is a temporal solution to the problem, it does not solve the systemic problem, meaning there's not enough supply side policies catered to retraining the labor force so they can match the skill demand in the current market. Before I move on to my second argument, yes, Patrick.
Yeah, your definition of robotics is very unclear at this point. Are you also going to remove all sorts of automated teller machines and also McDonald's self-service kiosks?
Automated teller machines. No, I'm not going to remove automated teller machines because I think the market has already been specialized enough. Like if you want to deposit a large amount of money, you don't deposit at the ATM or the cash deposit. You go to the actual teller. So I think that's not a problem. So like robotics in the sense AI, like automated servants like the ones you see in Japan and whatnot, right? So I think it's quite clear, right? So in terms of the structural incentives, what we're going to do is we're going to implement, we think that it's more likely that these three incentive structures will exist in government's work. Firstly, it's more likely for the government to incentivize better education to equip workers. But secondly, we'll also incentivize partnership between private and public actors. And thirdly, we'll see businesses that will be more likely to reach out to the low-skill workforce. This means that in our world, we have businesses that are more likely to have internal training programs, meaning that when the moratorium is then lifted, they'll have marketable skills that caters to the demand of the free market. The reason why we think that this benefit is mutually exclusive is because businesses are inherently profit-oriented, meaning for as long as there's no state intervention in the free market, there will not be any companies that will be incentivized to strike a balance between rapid capitalization and employee welfare. What we're doing is we're forcing these companies to strike this balance, right? So this means that on the other hand, when we incentivize better education, this means that students can work part-time jobs. This is when companies are more likely to hire part-time students to replace the absence caused by the removal of automation. And this is when you have parents who can retain their jobs and can give education to their students because they can afford it, right? Lastly, in terms of the skill leveling, right? Because the world that opening government wants to posit is a world in which there exists a coexistence between technology and humans. This means that, so because currently there's a gap, right, skill gap, we don't have enough people who know how to code. We don't have enough people who can leverage digital marketing. So what we do is we create a time frame where we can make it easier for these people to learn because it's not already taught in university courses. What we're doing is we're going to allow a time frame for tertiary institutions to implement these courses and design them to cater to the populace. And we're going to create a time frame that will allow for greater discovery and greater potential to discover what are the possible linkages and partnerships that can be forged between technological elements and human labor, right? For all those reasons, go with the side that seeks a balance between capitalism and welfare. Go with the side that fights for accountable capitalism.
Testing. Can you hear me? The burden coming from side opening opposition is simple. We're going to have two things to prove, and if we manage to prove that, then we'll win this debate. Number one is resolution of labor issues and unemployment even possible. Secondly, why robotics have marginal benefits over unemployment. Heck, Vino will come out here and tell you why sometimes unemployment is a necessary evil that needs to be done in the capitalistic world. To that extent, I have three questions to ask. Number one, can unemployment and labor issues ever be resolved? Secondly, why the global moratorium harms developing countries more? Because notice, every single one of opening government's arguments is contingent on there being technology and there being already a world where service industries are going to be there to actually cater to those demands. In an instance where the technology is not as good as what they want to claim, then we think the people are significantly harmed more, especially on the global impact they're going to have. Thirdly, why job displacements are normal as must be viewed as such because of the creation of new forces of occupation, which opening government decided to neglect. But before that, two extraneous rebuttals. Number one, this internal training program and the time frame to learn contradiction. So they want you to believe that when you start doing this, people will suddenly increase the number of training programs that they have. People will learn everything and they will learn how to use that. But if you're telling me that it's just a moratorium, meaning to say that companies can just wait it out, why would they have the incentive to actually pump more money into something that they're going to replace in a long time? But secondly, hello, there's something called Keynesian economics and economics of scale. Sharvin, you're an econ student, you should know that better. Meaning to say, in order for them to be able to cope with the reduction of demand and the reduction of production, what they do is not to pump in more money to increase the whatever cost they have, but rather to cut costs and to reduce the number of people that gets employed. So in your world, regardless, people will they never the matrix of 2.3issues ever be resolved. So the thing is this, the idea of a resolution of unemployment and labor issue is simply unfeasible in the capitalistic world. What do I mean by this? In the world where unemployment is a constant need because of the way the market constantly evolves, meaning to say that if right now people work in Starbucks, in the future people won't work in Starbucks. You are trying to a way to actually make sure that people will be able to learn and in a short amount of time, because that's the moratorium. So if you have a question, thirdly, why job displacement are normal? Okay, to do them justice, my point is this is because when you displace them, there's no international pressure towards the government to cause educate some pressure, because like you're also not going to prove the exchange of yours. So third argument, why job displacements are normal and must be viewed as such. In the 1500s, no, I got my history wrong. In 1800s, when the that sewing machine thing was created, people went out of jobs because we all the clothes. This means to say that initially there were a lot of push from the bourgeois in order to make sure that they constantly replace, and there were a lot of opposition for the people on the ground. What this means is that the fear was that they're not able to cope with the massive displacement of jobs that's going to happen across Europe. When they removed that and they went ahead of that spinning machine, and people eventually had too much money at hand, they were able to create something called a banking industry, which means that they will be able to handle the new demand, handling all this amount of copious cash making. Which means to say that the industry constantly evolves. Right now, manufacturing, for example, service industry might be the fourth frontier of what it means. But in the future, people might be able to come out with jobs that you and I can't imagine yet. But the thing is this, just because we cannot foresee what the future is, doesn't mean that we should artificially keep us at the pace. If that's the case, then that's an argument against change. So we will tell you on our side, it's very simple. As long as we prove to you that the temporary moratorium won't be effective, and secondly, what are meant to be displaced, we are easily taking this debate.